Well, it's been quite a week, of course, with the Dr Ranson second tribunal, and Richard here has been in touch with me some months now, following the Ranson thing. But you're also got your own issues with whistleblowing, and cause and effect, and what's going on with government, and try and get your information off them, and this sort of thing. So, as always, I mean, everyone's got a chance to come up here and talk to me about it. But what are you looking for? What's happened to you? Can you outline the problem that you've been facing?
Well, the whole thing started with, effectively, in 2019, January 2019, I issued a crime report on a very serious matter, and that involved a matter in a civil court, and I then went to the police, to the chief constable, and presented this, a full crime report, 335 pages of evidence. And there was two parts to this. One was the actual underlying, cause, the underlying matter, which I don't need to go into. It's not relevant with regards to my whistleblowing and such. What then, the second part of the crime report was the metadata. There was metadata within the court judgment that indicated that it had been either modified, edited, or possibly even written by the advocate on the other side. So the author of the judgment was an advocate, not the court. So I put that into the crime report. I was told this was very serious. It was going to be handled by a very important person, and they then got back to me, said, "Oh, we'll have to interview you, etc." Waiting for that, all of a sudden I get a letter saying, "No crime, nothing." So I looked at that then referred to the judgment that was in question itself, saying that had handled the matter civilly and therefore it didn't need to be handled criminally. Well, civil and criminal fraud are two entirely separate matters, right? Otherwise they would all just be called fraud, right? Yeah. So that then resulted in the situation where it all relied on this judgment. So they said, well, of course they couldn't then say that, except that the judgment metadata indicated there was some, to quote our Chief Minister, nefarious action potentially.
Because you've been in touch with the Chief Minister?
Yeah, I have, yeah. And so then the police said, well, no, that was all fine. This was a result of a copy-paste of, information from one document to another. Now, metadata, and this is how the whole thing connects to Dr Ranson, metadata is effectively DNA, document DNA. Mm.
And you're a bit of a whiz on this, because I know you know how to work computers, and you know exactly forensically how this all goes on.
Yes, exactly. And I did a lot of work on this. I talked to various people with PhDs, on document metadata in this specific area. Funnily enough, one of them said, you know more about this than I do. I was like, well, okay, he's got the doctorate, but not me. But the issue was that this metadata indicated, as I say, the authorship, and they said, oh no, it came from a copy-paste from this document. Now, I'll get back to that later, because I think the metadata part, it links through the whole...
I mean, this is quite complicated, so we have to try and compress this thing.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm more interested, I suppose, in you think there's a cover-up? You think there's been something that's going on that's not right? And this is back to like the Ranson thing, which we discussed as well.
Exactly. It's effectively a bare denial, right? I mean, here is a defence where we say, no, this came from a copy-paste. I say, well, sorry, it cannot have come from a copy-paste. This does not work. Much akin to if you put my glasses on, that doesn't change your DNA, okay? That's the equivalent of copy-pasting my glasses onto your face doesn't change your DNA. Same in a document.
Right. Criminal matter, police involved, but the police are telling you there's nothing to see here, move on, or was it not?
It's a very interesting thing. They issued no crime reference number at all.
You're entitled to a crime, aren't you?
According to UK police regulations, which are supposed to be followed here, there's a special sheet which says when it's supposed to be issued. It's definitely supposed to be issued.
And you haven't got one?
I haven't got one. It did, however, then result in me going off and checking with other people who had judgments from court. And I found over a dozen judgments, 8 people so far, that was just for scratching the surface, who had similar issues where the authorship of the judgment was questionable on a prima facie basis. So I wrote a whistleblowing report about this. Spent a lot of time on it, wrote it together with a team of people. I say there were 8 people involved. It's a 99-page report, sent it off to former Chief Minister Quayle, and nothing happened. Through subject access requests, and we were talking about those briefly.
Explain to the audience though, subject access requests, you can find out information about yourself, what people are holding about you.
Yes, exactly.
So you made this, and you're entitled to this, are you?
Yes.
It's like under an FOI sort of thing.
It is. It's effectively under the data protection and data,
so
information.
you can go to government and find out what they've got on you if you need it.
You can write to any authority
right.
and say, I would like to know what you hold on me. And then, depending on the department, they handle it differently.
Yeah.
They then send you the documents, emails and so forth. To be honest, it seems like they don't send you all.
Were you redacted? Because that comes up from time to time.
You get redactions on some things,
right.
on some things you don't. One of the weirdest ones, I mean, this has been a long story. This is now 4.5 years of fighting with these people,
wow.
Or trying to get them to do what they're supposed to do anyway. Okay, anything that's on a prima facie basis is supposed to be investigated. It's supposed to be looked at, right? On the face of it, prima facie, on the face of it, this is not right. So therefore, needs to be an explanation rather than just a bare denial. But what happened was I put in a subject access request with the police. Anybody who's had any dealings with the police, I highly recommend you do that. It's on their website. You fill in a form, you get the stuff back, and I received my crime report back, ostensibly redacted.
Even though it's for you. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
It's your data.
It's my data. I wrote it. I know exactly
and
whose name is in there.
Yeah, okay.
It came back, and I was told it was redactions. And then I started looking at it, marked up on my document everything that was missing. It turned out that 22 pages, 4.5 pages were missing.
Sorry, the stuff you sent in comes back to you missing 4.5 pages?
Yeah.
And there's no explanation for it? Or?
The explanation was it was redaction personal information.
Right.
Well, when I then, if you think of we're all old enough to remember negative some photos, right? You're looking at the opposite. So I looked at what was cut out. It was a really good summary. It was the best summary of my 22 pages I could think of. So someone went through it and removed all the key points. By removing the key points, what I received back, looked a bit like an unsubstantiated rant. Yeah. Now, that's a problem because the redactions, as you pointed out, could not have been made for me because I knew what it said in those documents, right? So who are they made for?
Okay, I think I'm now with you. So basically you think what went forward was missing those 4.5 pages. So the police, they went, there's nothing to look at here, basically.
Was
it worse than that? Or?
Well, the full document went to the AG chambers. But the police gave me back a
curtailed version.
Yeah, neutered version, right? So now we have a crime report with no reference number, this amendment. Then we have a whistleblowing report that we wrote on showing that this is not one of, not one exception, right? An error, a clerical error, but that something seems to be going on, quite regularly. This then was sent to a barrister in the UK for a legal opinion. So bearing in mind...
So the police sent it, or the AG sent it?
The police and the AG.
Sent it to a UK barrister?
A UK barrister to get a legal opinion. How that works when there is no reference number, neither with AG nor with the police...
No reference number
at
to
all.
Deal with it?
There is throughout my whole case, 4.5 years, I've not seen a single reference number with DHA, with police complaints commission.
To keep this
everyone
simplified,
it's amazing.
I'm getting the picture here. Anything else on your worry and concerns on how they've handled it?
What worries me is I created, when this copy-paste came along, which I've now seen, finally received a document that is the full copy of my crime report. There's one handwritten note on the whole thing, okay? So that means these redactions were made afterwards. But there's one handwritten note which says copy-paste from the electronic document. That's it. So if you're reading a crime report and you're in the habit of making handwritten notes next to it or on the verges of it, then presumably you will be looking for evidence of the crime, not a get out of jail free clause, okay? Which is, let's say it's a copy paste of the electronic document. I created a document, a so-called comparison document in Word, which is taking the document that they said it was copy pasted from and the judgment, merging the two. And
discrepancies?
Yeah, to show that these documents were never related, ever, okay? So I sent that, I got no comment on that. 2 years later, something like that, this document reappears with me from a subject access request from the UK, from the Barrister. There it is described not as a comparison document, but as a tracked changes document. So in other words, that would mean, it would imply that the document was, in fact, put together. So it was effectively described as the very opposite as to what it was made for. So my own evidence was being presented as something wrong.
Really big stuff here, and I'm sure there's more. I'm just trying to think, just so we can get this to a level I'm trying to understand, is just like presumably what we've seen in other things in high profile moment. You think there's been some sort of corruption? Is that too strong a word? Or somebody's not been playing ball properly?
I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's too strong a word. What I would say is
use it carefully. Only if
it's a word to use with care. It's the issue is that it's something that nobody wants to look. It's like Pandora's box, right? Nobody wants to open it. Nobody wants to. Everything is just a question of bare denial, and this goes all the way through to my correspondence that you've seen in the last few weeks with. You
contacted the Chief Minister, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. But he's not going to be interested. He's not interested. I think.
I think this ought to be very interesting because an island, or indeed a jurisdiction, a country, relies on the confidence that people have within the documents that are made by the authorities of that jurisdiction.
To be fair, it's probably nothing that he can do. He's the Chief Minister, he's got probably other things to do, but you're frustrated by the sounds of it. You cannot get resolution from government to help you sort this out.
Yeah, in the wake of Ranson, he was saying in the House that he wanted to change the culture. That was a year ago.
That was a year ago, Mr. Cannon.
And that's really not changed. And then
Doesn't seem to have yet.
A few weeks ago, he was in response to a question by Dr. Michelle Hayward, MHK. He said that there were nefarious actions within government. And now, if these things are not nefarious, and there are many more levels, to this involving all sorts, it is then I'm not quite sure how high a bar that definition
I think what will be worrying people, that's worrying me, is that only because you know what you're doing with this metadata and you're very savvy and you've been like a dog with a bone, I'm guessing, on this one. Other people would have fallen earlier on and it would just gone nowhere. But you're not going to give up, I can see that.
No, I mean, there's a number of reasons. Well, firstly, I know that what I'm saying here is correct, and I dislike the way that the government authorities are handling this. I think it's totally inappropriate. I find it, in fact, embarrassing. Much like yourself, I've moved to the island, in my case in 2003, and I love it here. I want to be proud of the place that I live in. I don't want this kind of stuff to go on.
Got it. So you go to the Chief Minister to point out what's going on, so he can maybe...
Because I would hope that they would do something. Also, there's a second thing, and that is there are people that this kind of thing has been done to Dr. Ranson, cannot work for the next several years, as a finding by the tribunal. Chris Robertshaw, mentioned this just last week with regards to Abbotswood.
Yeah.
There are other people. What is happening is gaslighting. What is happening
Just
is...
explain that term for people who don't know.
Gaslighting is basically when you claim something that is yourself is untrue, but you're making the other person question themselves. They are claiming that black is white, and if you go along and show them the law and the colour chart, they'll still say that black is white. And at some point, you think you need to go to the optician.
Sure.
That is the problem.
These are not the drones you're looking for. Keep
Yes.
walking. I
Yes,
always use that
exactly.
expression. Like,
Yeah.
basically,
Just
keep going.
Go on.
Yeah.
Go on. And
Okay.
the thing is that other people are going to, be destroyed by this. I'm not. So therefore I feel it's my duty to continue and to do my best.
You need a crime number, don't you? I mean, you need all these things sorting out. I mean, is that a chief constable issue now? I mean, the new chief is in place. Have you got any interaction with the new chief?
We're starting that.
Right.
But the issue is that, the Department of Home Affairs has specifically tried to say that anything that was dealt with beforehand shouldn't be reopened by the new chief constable.
Okay, now we're going to into that area of civil servants.
Keep the lid on it, right?
That's a civil servant.
This is
senior civil servants.
Very senior civil servants.
Ones that, by the sounds of it, possibly might be involved in other things that we don't want to necessarily talk about today.
Absolutely.
There's a potential that there's a crossover here.
There's a lot of crossovers. There's
Right.
What a tangled web we weave, right? So this is the problem that, I think my view and my wish with regards to the Chief Minister and indeed Comyn is that they act with this. Not just my case, all these cases, for a very simple reason, and that is people want to move their businesses and themselves to a jurisdiction where they know that justice is served. So my view is that Alf Cannon should write to the UK Ministry of Justice and request a UK-led public inquiry with a full powers.
I get that, but he's not wanting to do that.
No,
surely, because means the Pandora's box will be well and truly.
Yes, but it would
up.
mean that the economy of the island would grow massively. We would be the go-to low-tax jurisdiction for anyone. Because would you like to be in a place where wrongdoing is solved?
Very simply,
or not?
We're talking two words: good governance.
Good governance,
which is the gold standard for anyone to have that in place. Transparency.
Yeah.
All those words that Alf Cannon has used, and other ministers, that the Isle of Man is adhering to, or should be. But,
reputation is something that is earned, not demanded, requested. It's not given automatically. We have the best location. We are not in the South Seas. We are not in either literally or close to banana republics. We are not in the Caribbean.
But getting the UK Justice Minister in, it makes it look like there's trouble that can't be dealt with at home, of course.
But that is here's a line you're not going to hear very often. I'm in marketing, trust me, I'm in marketing. But that is the best marketing line you could ever have for an offshore low tax jurisdiction. We deal with wrongdoers, right? Even if they are friends, related, ex-lovers, we deal with them. That is what will be the hallmark of the island if the island does something. Otherwise, we are going to be in this situation where we are so close. If the airport works, we are so close to London, closest of all, but could get into a situation where people say, well, I'm not going there.
Well, these sort of videos don't help. And I don't know how many times I've said to the government, this is what you don't want to be seeing, but we have to do. And I should point out, you're one of quite a few people who have contacted me since the whole Dr. Ranson thing. And I say to everyone, you'll have to go in front of the camera. And I appreciate that because I know it's not been easy for you to make this decision because it does change things. That you're putting your head above the parapet, aren't you, basically?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't mind that. I've got a very good team. I've got a very clear basis on these things.
But a lot of people won't do that, you see.
And the thing is, the technical knowledge, helps. What I find most worrying, if someone goes off and actually looks into things and comes back with, a decision based on false information, lack of knowledge, whatever, that'd be fine. But when you find that people don't actually go and look into anything, when you find that you can write to the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister, and if you don't mind, I'd like to quote what I wrote just a few days ago.
What, to Alf Cannon?
Yeah, because I think it's a relevant point and shows how important this is for the island's economy, for the island's people, for everybody. People might never end up on a barrel. There might be a few barrels further down, but if people now don't deal with it,
what did you say?
So I said that such persistent unwillingness to display any professional curiosity might be seen by the objective observer to be placing the Isle of Man administration in a position of aiding and abetting misconduct, gross misconduct, and criminal actions. Mm-hmm. That is not a place where even the people currently living here, including myself, will want to remain if that stays like that. We should. And what was the reaction to this? Did I get a response from Alf or indeed Jane Poole Wilson, the only two who received this? No, I was sent a letter by the chief exec of the DHA, who was the person I was complaining about.
I think you said, because this gatekeeper thing, the amount of people who got back to me, people who work in government, are all saying things to me that aren't sounding good, because there's this sort of blockage, or what do you call it, these senior civil servants who have got the voice, or the ear, shall I say, of the ministers. And I think there's some issues that we have to, not me, but the government has to address at some point, because there's not a reliance that we can believe in everything that's going on at the minute, right?
Yeah, and as a funny little thing, this was sent by email.
Yeah.
I received the response on a letter. Why? Because they don't trust me on the metadata.
They sent you a physical letter?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So I receive responses and letters.
There's no metadata to find out?
No, the barrister in the UK, who was asked about these metadata issues, received the evidence from the police, printed out, scanned, and sent to him, so that there was no metadata, which is like asking, somebody to give an analysis on DNA based on the photo of some blood. It's a photocopy of something. You cannot go into the metadata.
Okay, let's leave that.
This is crazy.
Please feel free to come back to us.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the only means that some people have to get their word out there. We've got a lot of people watching this thing, but again, it's this worry, and it's not just you. I feel it. Yeah. That you've got civil servants who are possibly involved where they shouldn't be. Possibly. Let's just leave it like that.
And it could be that this is happening. Well, we know it's happening to others.
It's definitely happening. I've got a long list of people.
Yeah, exactly. And some of those people might not have the technical knowledge. They might not be able the strategic knowledge. Might not have. Not many people want to fight for 4.5 years.
Yeah, they're good. Right? The gumption to be able to keep going on this.
And so that's why I say I feel it's my duty to do so that this doesn't happen in the future.